I would not consider myself someone who went into 2020 as like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna pick up some horror. So again, it's romance. Who am I, right? I'm on my second battery and my third memory card. This is how today is going. So. Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. If you are here, you know that there was part one of all the books that I loved in 2020. And if you missed that, I will link it down below for you guys. But without any hesitation, let's get into the rest of the books I loved in 2020. And I am obsessed with The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And this book to me has all the makings of a great Netflixy, Hulu type of series. It is going to be the first in a series, which I love. It also gave me Truly Devious vibes, not in story, but in how I felt about it, and in the fact that it is well-crafted characters. It's a great mystery. There's lots of twists and turns going on. There's some mystery in the past and some mystery in the present, and I just devoured this. I did not expect to love this as much as I did. I thought it was going to be fun, but I was 100% into this book. The premise of this book is we have our main character Avery. She is, I think she's a junior in high school, I want to say. And her mom has passed away a year ago. She wound up moving in with her half-sister. They don't have a lot of money. Things are just not really great for the two of them. And basically all Avery wants to do is just graduate high school, get a scholarship, go to college, and like get out of Dodge. And fate comes and plays a little bit of a hand, and Avery finds out that she has been named in the will of this billionaire, Tobias Hawthorne, who has just died. And she doesn't know who he is, but down her and her sister go to Texas. And she finds out that she is the single named heir to this fortune, despite the fact that Tobias has children and grandchildren, and he is just like a bazillionaire. And the catch is she needs to live in his sprawling mansion for a year in order to inherit the money. And it kind of has like a Knives Out feel to it, in that you have this entire family of people who fully expected to be the ones who are going to inherit the fortune. And they're all like, who's this? Who's this girl Avery? And she's like, I don't know who Tobias is, so I don't really understand what I'm doing here. And it just goes in so many fun directions, and in like the Knives Out feel of like, is she in danger? Because if Avery can't inherit the fortune, then what happens to it? So this just goes in so many fun directions. Again, I can't say enough good things about it. Just read it. It was so fun. It was so twisty. Only thing I'm mad about is like the next book in the series isn't going to come out, I think, till September of 2021, and I don't want to wait that long, but I have no choice, so I'll probably have to read this one again. But this was just so good. Had no idea it was going to be as fun as it was, and I just absolutely loved this book. Another thriller is His and Hers by Alice Feeney, and I also just loved this one. Duh, that's why it's on the list. But this is dual POV, and this is another trope I love, in that we have one of our protagonists has to go back to her small hometown that she escaped when, you know, she was younger, and has to kind of deal with her own past that she's trying to get away from. So we have two perspectives in this one. So we have Anna and Jack. So Anna is a TV reporter in London, and there is a murder that happens in a small town outside of London, which happens to be her hometown, and she gets sent down to cover it. And she really doesn't want to go, but her career is kind of a little bit on the rocks, so she doesn't really have a choice. So she goes down and has to investigate this murder, and then she, of course, has to deal with the inspector, who is Jack, who's investigating the murder as well. And poor Jack goes from being the investigator to, at some point, being a suspect in his own investigation. And this is, again, you get both of their perspectives, you get some past and present, you get old mysteries, you get new mysteries. It is nice and dark and twisty in all the best ways. I really enjoy Alice Feeney's writing. So I did read Sometimes I Lie, her first book. I did not read her second book, but this to me was just so well done, so well crafted. The secrets, the misdirections, the red herrings, the connections, all of it. I love characters who are deceptive and dark and messed up. And I got a lot of it in this book, but it was just such a great read. It was a fast read, and I just highly, highly recommend it if you're looking for a good thriller. So the next book is another one I did not see coming at all, and it's The Brightlands by John Fram. And this is more horror than thriller, and I was hooked, you guys. And I actually listened to the audiobook of this, which I would highly recommend, because the narrator of this does such a great job being such an incredible creeper that it's like the voice that nightmares are made of for me. I was so freaked out listening to this at some points, but it's so well done. And this is basically, I would describe this as kind of like Varsity Blues Friday Night Lights with horror. And you were talking like high school Texas football, and our star quarterback Dylan, and he reaches out to his brother Joel, who like 10 years earlier, who was also the star quarterback and back in his day in high school, is now living in New York City. This is like small town Texas, small-minded people in this town who were not accepting of Joel, who was gay. So Joel has like left the town, not looking back. But when his brother Dylan reaches out to him, basically like, I need your help, Joel comes back. And no sooner does he come back that his brother Dylan goes missing. So this is sort of part mystery of what happened to Dylan, part Joel having to deal with all of these people who years ago treated him like such incredible crap and are not accepting of him now. And it is so many deep, dark secrets in this town and the lengths they will go to protect these secrets. And you get everything from, again, this sort of small-mindedness to toxic masculinity, to this hero worship of the football players, to this creepy as all get out voice that infects their nightmares at night. And you guys, if you are looking for something creepy, I would not consider myself someone who went into 2020 as like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna pick up some horror. I read some books this year that I am like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna pick up some horror, because it freaked me out, but I loved it. And it was just so well done. And again, much like The Shadow Friend, this is a book that has mystery, horror, and thriller elements to it completely, but there is also an undercurrent of grief and loss and family and complicated relationships and confronting your past and dealing with your past and dealing with things that you ran away from. And I did not expect to have such a visceral emotional reaction to it like I did. And I just cannot say enough great things about it. So do the audiobook. It's so, so good. And I can't wait to see what John Fram does next. Because again, I didn't see this coming from a mile away. I heard about it from Gabby at Gabby Reads, and I'm so glad I picked it up, because this is a book that 100% just blew me away. Next up is You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. And one, I, till this day, cannot get the Billie Eilish song out of my head. And two, this book gave me like 80s teenage say anything-ish type of vibes in it, with love stories and high school and John Hughes' type of feels to all of it in all the best ways. But this is a story about a girl named Liz Leidy, and she lives in a small town in Indiana, which unfortunately also has some small-minded people in it, but not all of them. But Liz's mom passed away, and she lives with her grandparents and her brother, and basically Liz wants to leverage her skills to get herself a scholarship to get to college so she can become a doctor. And she finds out that her scholarship is not coming through as she hoped it would, and she's not going to have the money she needs to be able to go to school. But then she is reminded that the prom king and queen get a scholarship as part of the deal. So Liz Leidy, who is the last person on the planet who would ever run for prom queen, runs for prom queen. And so you get like your fish out of water, and it's like the last thing she wants to do, and all of her friends are kind of like, what are you doing? But at the same time, like, they get why she's doing it, because she wants the scholarship. So her fabulous group of friends pitch in to help her out to be prom queen. And the hitch is that there's a lot of competition to be the queen, and Liz winds up falling for new girl Mac, who is also one of her competitors running for queen. So you wind up getting this amazing story of Liz falling for Mac, and then her mission to try and become prom queen, and then you get all these other girls who are running for queen who are trying to do everything they can to squash out the competition because everybody wants to win. And it's just, again, there's moments of it that are, it's that levity and it's funny and there's like some beautiful rom-com-y moments to it, but you also have her grief over her mom, and then you have her ex-best friend who was running for king, who became sort of like this cool guy basketball player and kind of like ditched her at some point, and them trying to repair their relationship. And then you have sort of some rub between some of the other friends, and then you've got some stuff with her family, and there's so many different layers to it. And I did not, again, expect to love this as much as I did, but it was another book that I might have shed a couple of tears. There is a moment which to me, and it's not the same, but it gave me the vibes of the John Cusack boombox moment in Say Anything, which is by far one of my most favorite moments in movie ever. And I just loved it. I loved everything about this book. I thought it was such a beautiful story. I loved Liz as a character. She's strong, she's determined, but she is so profoundly human, and she has moments of insecurity and she has moments of complete self-confidence. I dare you not to fall in love with Liz. I just think she is such a rock star, and I just loved this book so much, and I loved Mac and I love them, and I love this entire story. The next book is going to come as no surprise if you guys have watched any of my channel, and it's A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, and another new favorite auto-buy author for me. I've already read the sequel, which is out in the UK, and this is a YA thriller with all the things. We have mixed media, we have podcasts, we have a murder in the past and a mystery in the present trying to solve it. And this is about a high school senior named Pip who is working on her senior project, and a murder took place in her hometown 5 years earlier. And the person who was accused of the murder, who has since also passed away, was her best friend's older sister's friend. And Pip, like a lot of other people, didn't actually believe that he was the killer. And she is on a mission to find out what really happened 5 years ago. And her digging into this case, as you can understand and expect, does not make everybody really happy. And she does it anyway. But this is just such a well done book from, again, a story standpoint. There are elements of this that remind me of how I felt when I was reading Truly Devious, in that I really loved the character. There is no cookie cutter character here. There is no surface character. I feel like you understand what motivates these people, what drives them. They are complex. The relationships can be complex. There is a great friend group. There's a great family group. And I just loved it. I was so invested. I wound up reading this book, I think like 2 or 3 weeks later. I got the audiobook of it because I had it on hold at the library, and it wound up coming in, and I listened to it, and the audiobook is absolutely tremendous. And then I read the sequel maybe 2 months ago, which again, you can get it out in the UK. It comes out in the US, I think in March. But I loved it. This one definitely was the standout to me, but book number 2 is not bad by any stretch. So the only thing I will just mention to you guys, which I didn't realize until after I read this book, and then I was listening to a podcast with Holly Jackson, and the original book came out in the UK, and it's set in the UK, and for whatever reason, when this came out in the US, they changed the setting to Connecticut. And I don't know why they changed the setting, because I 100% would read books set in the UK. I mean, set in the UK, not changed for the US. Set in the UK, not changed in the US edition. But I just absolutely loved this book. I can't say enough good things about it. I'm so pulled into like mixed media and the text messages and interviews and transcripts, and I just love that stylistically, and I just loved this story. So huge fan of Pip, huge fan of this story. Definitely pick it up, definitely give it a go if you have not yet, because I don't think you'll be disappointed. Another book that should come as no surprise if you guys have watched me at all, and it's Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I love Riley Sager, and I just was blown away by this book. And I have been a big fan of his for the past couple years. Final Girl is still my favorite book of his, and I would say this probably ties for first place. And I have been following him. I obsessively listen to podcasts and interviews with him. I have done a whole bunch of author events online during quarantine. He's done so much stuff. He's so present online, and he talks so much about his process and his craft and his journey with this book. And I think all of those things really affected my opinion of it in the best way. And this is a book within a book. He dances the perfect line between thriller and horror, and I just love what he does. So he'll kind of take like a well-known story. So the Final Girls are, you know, the Jamie Lee Curtis, The Last One Standing in the Massacre. And he did The Last Time I Lied, which was like the summer camp movie. And Rosemary's Baby was Lock Every Door. And in Home Before Dark, this is sort of his homage to the Amityville Horror, but not in a way that you would think it's going to be. So in this twisted book, Maggie Holt's father has just passed away, and she finds out that in his will, he left her Bainbury Hall, which is this sprawling Victorian estate up in Vermont that she and her parents lived in for about 21 days when she was a kid. And they left in the middle of the night because this house of horrors was haunted, supposedly. And her dad winds up writing this best-selling nonfiction book about their 3 weeks in this house and the haunting and the horrors and everything that drove them out in the middle of the night. And they have never been back, and it is their kind of Amityville. And she doesn't remember things the way he writes about them. And she kind of never believed that any of it happened, and kind of feels like her dad made the whole thing up. And he became super famous and super wealthy off of this book. And this house became the House of Horrors that became legendary, basically. And she didn't even know that he still owned it. So Maggie, as it would happen, is a house flipper. So despite the fact that her mother says to her, like, don't go back there, she goes back, she's gonna clean up the house, and she's gonna sell it and just wipe her hands of it, because she just doesn't believe in any of the nonsense. But she gets there, and there starts to be some nonsense. And it becomes a case of, was her dad right all along? Or is there something else going on here? And what's brilliant about this book is you get dual points of view, but you get Maggie in the present, and then you get her father's book woven into it. So you find out what happens in the past through reading his book. And I just absolutely loved it. And there's definitely like some creep out parts of this. There is some great winks and nods to horror movies. And that's what I also love about Riley Sager, because he's like in on the joke with you. So he's like, I know I'm doing a little Pet Sematary here, and I'm gonna wink about it to you. And I just love his characters. I love that he writes just such strong, amazing women. And the thing like with Final Girls is like, you know, they're not the victim, they're the survivors. And he just writes just great characters. I loved the story. Again, huge respect from a writing standpoint of doing the book within a book. I've read a few of those types of stories, and they are not easy to pull off, and I just think he can do no wrong. This was a book I read compulsively in like 2 sittings. You want to forget about what's going on in the world and also give yourself a little bit of a scare. This is the way to go. So next up is Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. And I also read Get a Life, Chloe Brown, but there was just something about Danny that I loved a little bit more, but both of these books are tremendous. And book number 3, there's 3 sisters in the family, comes out in I think January or March, so I'm excited for that. But Danny, this is like a friends to lovers fake dating story, which I just loved. So again, it's romance, who am I, right? But I just loved it. I did not expect to have all the feels of this story either. And this was another one. So what I love about Talia Hibbert's books is, yes, it's romance, but it is also very complicated characters who have a lot more going on behind the scenes. And she weaves in beautiful storylines and in some ways much more serious issues on top of what is just great romantic fun. So the fake dating starts because Danny, who is a PhD student, and I wonder if she's like a TA or an assistant professor at this college, and then Zaf is the security guard. And basically one day there's a fire drill that kind of goes wrong. Danny gets stuck in an elevator. She's completely freaked out about it. Zaf winds up rescuing her, literally carrying her out of the building, and like everybody pulls out their iPhones and they're recording it like it's this actual rescue that's happening, even though it was just a drill. Video goes viral, and then what winds up coming out is that people realize that Zaf is this former very famous rugby player who kind of dropped off the planet after something tragic happened. So he kind of needs some good publicity, and Danny is between relationships, and she had just said to the universe, like, send me somebody. So she takes this as a sign that Zaf is that person. So they fake date. One of the things I love about Talia Hibbert is she is able to do just such great like rom-com, and there's funny and witty and smart moments, but there's real, also heartbreaking and warm moments. And you know, you have Zaf, who is dealing with a past tragedy, and it's about post-traumatic stress, and it's about anxiety, and it's about depression, and it's about how you live and move on, and how you close yourself off when bad things happen to you, and how you open yourself back up again. And this was a book that also made me cry a little bit, and I didn't see that coming. And I just loved them. And I love the Brown Sisters series. I'm excited for book number 3, but this was a book that it was light and funny, and I was laughing out loud a lot of it. And I did the audiobook of it, which was great, British narrator. And there were also moments where I was like, ugh, like it just hit me in so many perfect ways, and just, again, melted my little black heart, which is just, I'm Zaf, man. I'm closed off from people. And I just didn't expect to just have so many warm and fuzzies reading these books, but I really enjoyed them. I think she's such a great writer, and I'm so excited that I dove into the Brown Sisters series. But Danny, there's just something about her, and I don't know if it's like her witchy vibes, or if it's just her kind of like take no prisoners attitude, or what it is, but all of it. I just loved all of it, and I thought it was just such a great fun read, but also really struck chords on some really emotional levels, which I think, again, so beautifully well done. Nothing soapboxy about it. It's just a part of who these characters are, and it's part of the story. And it's one of the things that I like about so many of the books that I read, is you get characters who are not cookie cutter or one-dimensional, because we are not cookie cutter or one-dimensional. And I think the way that she writes her characters and writes Zaf and Danny, and their friendship and how it grew and how they opened up to each other, I just loved all of it. I just thought it was such a beautiful book, and that's why it's on my list. So now for a book which I legit just finished last night on December 31st. Is Confessions on the 745 by Lisa Unger. I was looking for a book to be my number 100 because I was 2 days away from the end of the year. I was at 99 books. I was committed to hitting 100, and I was like, what am I gonna read? And I wanted to just pick a book that I was going to totally enjoy, but at the same time, a book that I had hopes would keep me gripped to the page. And this book did all the things. And this book was so not what I thought it was going to be, and I say that again in the best way possible. So the premise of this book is Selena is not having a great day, and she misses her train home at night and winds up on the 745. And if anyone has ever commuted on a train before, you know trying to find a seat on a train at the commute is hard as can be. So she's walking up the aisle, and this woman has her purse on the seat next to her, picks up her purse, and Selena takes the seat. And the train winds up getting stuck, so bad day goes to worse, and the women strike up a conversation. And Martha, the woman she's sitting next to, confesses that she's having an affair with her married boss. And her boss is married to the owner of the company, and Martha is really nervous that she's gonna get fired, she's gonna like lose her job, and her world is about to blow up. And then Selena's like, well, I just found out that my husband is having an affair with the nanny. So like, I'm right there with you in that, like, we're both just not in a good place right now. And Martha's kind of like, wouldn't it be great if both of our problems could just disappear? And they get off the train, never see each other again, never met each other before. And a couple days later, Selena's nanny goes missing and disappears. And kind of a strangers on the train, but not really. And Selena's world slowly starts to implode. And this is multiple POVs. This is such a ride. And I don't mean that in like a pun train kind of a way, but I was trying to puzzle it all together. And you guys, I kid you not. So the night of December 30th, I read 16 pages of this book. I spent all of New Year's Eve reading / listening to this. So I downloaded the audiobook. I went on a marathon walk so I could listen to a ton of it. I listened to it while I was making lunch. Then I sat down and ate lunch and read it. Then I listened to it while I was doing the dishes. Then I sat down and read it. I spent all of my New Year's Eve when I was not on the phone talking to friends and family reading this book, and I finished it and I loved it. And even if I was not on a mission to hit 100 books by midnight, I feel like this is one of those books where I was like, I just need to know, because as things started to puzzle together and things started to connect and things started to reveal, it was reminiscent of when I was reading the one by John Mars, which is another, and probably the last book I read in a 24-hour period, where I was like, I just need to know. I just need to know. I just need to know. So this is complicated women and complex characters and secrets and lies and just deception, and again, the things you will do for your family and the lengths that you will go to, and who do you really know and who do you really trust. And there's some police investigation to this, and there's just so much. I don't even want to say anything that's gonna possibly maybe give anything away, but this was definitely well written, puzzling things together. I really loved these characters. I loved the premise of this book. I hope I never ever have to get on a train again to have to go to work. And if I do, you can bet I will not be talking to the person next to me ever, because I don't have a nanny, but I don't need some stranger putting something out into the universe that's bad and then having it happen. Couldn't think of a better way to end 2020. Such a high note. And I just absolutely loved this book. And an author who writes unlikable people but makes me root for them is one of my most favorite things, and is one of the things that makes me love a story. And all of that was happening in here. So yes, this book, you guys. So that is it for all of the books that I totally loved in 2020. And there's just something about these books. These are books that I will read again. These are books that made me laugh. They made me cry. They freaked me out. They made me want to be a better writer. They just did all the things, all the feels. So let me know if I mentioned any of your favorite books. Let me know what your favorite book was. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for hanging out today and spending part of your time with me. And I'll see you guys really soon. Bye, everybody.